everyone, I'm Hsing-ay, and today I'm talking with Calleja, our poet for February 25th recital.
I'm a poet and a dancer, and I love art. And I came at poetry from just wanting to choreograph space and time, and take that onto the page. I love interdisciplinary work, so I love getting to now pair writing with music. Language always means something, but I think one of the things poetry can do is make you think again about what it means and what you assume it to mean.
In tonal music, there is a language in the choice of chords, and the choice of movements. For instance, like a lament going down. I mean, that's associated with grief, right? So there is this vocabulary harmonically that's
Mm,
built into what we're hearing. Yeah.
yeah,
But I like the idea of, when you're working with actual words, you're liberating it, but you're liberating it from something concrete, right?
hmm,
Whereas in
yeah,
music, I feel like we're starting with an abstract sound. And
yeah,
so to liberate, what does that actually mean? But in the end, I think that idea that we're combining this semantic layer, like a very specific meaning, whether it's the harmonic progression or associations or references, and then
yeah.
we are layering it with the aesthetic of the moment, which is like, this is novel, this is special, this is fresh. um,
Mm,
this is whatever you are going to infuse into it, and then we marry the two, and we have layers of richness, complexity.
yeah, yeah. I think that's a great way to say it.
The Brahms piece, Opus 118, that we're pairing, there's so much ambivalence, and there's happiness and unhappiness like on top of each other. I was just reading Arthur Brooks. He teaches happiness at Harvard,
Huh.
and um, and he's great at coming up with like definitions of all these words that we kind of throw around, like what does happiness actually mean. But one of
Yeah,
the concepts that he was talking about is that we tend to think of happiness and unhappiness being like part of a 100% like box, and like if
mm,
we're 40% unhappy, then we are only 60% happy, right? But he says what he has found scientifically is that they are two separated layers of emotions and feelings, and we can be quite unhappy and quite happy overlaid, and they have
yeah,
nothing to do with each other.
yeah, yeah. That
um,
does seem true to experience, but that's wild to know scientifically that's how it works.
yeah, it's wild to get that paradox in our head, like, and think about think about how we think. But
Yeah,
for instance, like in the Brahms and the number four, there's like these opposing ideas. So on one hand, there's this reaching towards something, like desiring something, these long notes, and they're ahead of the beat. So they're always like, they're always going towards an expansion, and then the bass, the two voices in the bass are rooting and they're grounding and they're happy sitting. Yeah, and then you have it together. And I think that the fun of the composer, or in your case, the poet, is um, fitting those things together so that they're not in conflict musically, but they're
mm,
in conflict intentionally.
yeah, yeah, intentionally, which makes me think of tension. And I think tension can be really productive and exciting and interesting, and that's sort of the complex layer that makes you interested in a piece of art, I think.
I remember the line that you have, which is, the cosmos, and then you're pressing it in your finger,
Mm.
and it's an interesting image. Now, tell me more about the cosmos neck. I think is the way that you described it.
Yeah. Well, the secret to that is that I'm talking about the flower called cosmos. But it's both, which I think is what I like about what poetry can do, is that you can have it both ways. So that's a place where, because I broke the line right after cosmos, when you read the line, you really get the sense of the universe. But then in the next line, that's where I introduce the word neck and somebody pinching the cosmos blossom. And so then you can amend your understanding and know that it's also a flower. But I hope that, like, if I do it well, then the reader is left with both understandings, that they have the cosmos, there's still like the residue of the big word of the cosmos. And we have the understanding that in the actual scene of the poem, it's a person with a little flower.
So you're
Um,
talking about putting cosmos at the end of a line as a way to emphasize it.
yes,
It's
yes,
the last
absolutely.
word of a line.
Mhm.
So do you ever emphasize something by putting at the beginning of a line?
Um, I think that the beginning of the line does carry weight, like the word that you choose at the beginning of the line. Um, I think my opinion would be that the end of the line carries more weight. I think we remember what's last more often than what comes first. That's always how I thought about dance as well. So
In dance choreography, you mean?
yeah, yeah, you're left with the ending, I think stays with people more than the beginning. And of course, the beginning matters a lot. It sets up the whole piece.
Yeah.
But I think there's more weight at the end of the line than at the beginning. But that's just my opinion.
Although most of your lines are not actual endings, they are some sort of a suspension that you have
Hmm.
to carry that thought with you and start looking at the next line.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So they're kind of like, I think half cadences in music would be the equivalent. So instead
Mm,
of
okay.
like actually resolving back to the one chord, which is the home bass, you
Hmm.
go to the five chord. And there's that moment of, oh, we're on the five and it wants to go to the one, but we're not there. And then
Yeah.
we move on. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that happens. Well, that happens a lot in Brahms for sure, but like maybe in number two, a half cadence would sound like this. Um, so here we're on the five, and then he goes on to the next line. Yeah,
Mm,
something like
mm.
that.
Yeah. So like suspending the resolution that you expect, is that accurate?
Yeah, and drawing more attention. I mean, I think that the five chord is uh, in tonal music the place with most tension and direction because
Mm.
you're wanting to hear it go back to the resolution of the one chord.
Yeah.
So I guess the end of a line is where that spatially makes you
Yeah.
want to go to the next line.
Yeah, that's right. So you're always playing with the readers or the listener's expectation, and sometimes fulfilling it. That would be an end stopped line if it ends at the end of the phrase or the sentence. But
Yeah,
then
that would be the
pulling it
full
across the line.
cadence. Yeah, the full cadence. Let's see, where does that happen? It doesn't happen for a very long time, and then it goes. No, actually, it doesn't even happen on this page. That's the beauty of the tension in Brahms is like it goes on for so long.
Keeps
I
going.
can't even find it. Oh, here's the cadence. There's
Mm,
the final cadence of that section, and then we go to the
yes.
next stanza or the next paragraph.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. And when you delay it, I think often then that resolution feels all the more satisfying and powerful.
Right, right. Well, neat. Let's talk about another aspect of pairing. I think would be the phrase that stuck to me when we were having a conversation the other day was the messiness of an
Mm,
idea
yeah.
that poetry um, and art music, concert music that's meant for us to listen to multiple times. It allows us to tackle the messiness of an idea.
Mm, yeah, I love that.
Right. So when you start composing something, obviously you are interested in tackling the messiness, but do you start with some sort of clarity and then you allow it to become messy?
No, usually not. Usually
No. Okay.
I start with some sort of feeling
Mm.
um or idea, both probably feeling and idea of something that bothers me or feels like it's a tension that interests me, and then I write into it to see where it goes. But um most of the time I don't know where it's going beforehand, or if I think I do, the poem will tell me otherwise as I start.
But actually, I think I hear you say that you're looking for places of discomfort.
Yeah,
Right?
mostly. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, okay, number four, full of discomfort, number four.
Mm,
And there's well, again, there's a lot of built-in conflict with the rhythm, like there's two against three. So one hand is playing three notes against the other hand playing two. Right. So on the small scale, there's conflict there. But then I
yeah.
think also there's conflict with the going forward and going and wanting to settle. And then there's the conflict of wanting to find a way forward, but then also feeling stuck and like against the grain. So for instance, there's a part here that he has the same melody but out of sync in the left hand and the right hand. So it's a canon. So the melody is, and then the left hand has it, and out of sync it's, and then with all the other stuff going on underneath, it's really messy. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
there's conflict, internal conflict,
Yeah.
which I find a lot of in my daily life. They're completely opposing drives that are pretty much equally strong. So there isn't like a clear answer. I have to make a choice, and it's like splitting hairs, right? Because
Mhm.
I don't know. Do you feel
Mhm.
that way?
Oh yeah, always. I always have different, I mean, I think there are different parts of me that want different things at most
Yeah.
moments. Um,
Yeah. Right. And how do you find the composite? Um,
yeah, yeah. And when do you need to choose? And when is it like that piece of movement? When can it just be all there together and you can acknowledge the different parts of yourself that want different things? I think that can
right.
be good too.
But then still have to make a decision like, what am I gonna do for the next half an hour?
Yeah, for something like that, when you've got an hour, what do you
Yeah.
do? Yeah.
Right, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, let's talk about the title. It's a really interesting idea to think about the word ravel, which is,
Yeah.
by the way, not the same as the French composer Ravel.
Different than Ravel. I've had someone else say that too. Like, yeah, it's not quite. Yeah, Ravel, I mean, I just got one day I got nerdy about contronyms, which I had discovered are a little niche part of speech that can be a word that can mean both things. So not like a synonym that means this, two words that mean similar things, but a contronym is one word that can mean opposite things. Um, Not really that useful except for being a fun, nerdy way to try to write a poem. So some of this poem started from just being interested in that idea. um, and so ravel can mean both, meaning that you might think of for unravel, the like unwinding kind of action, but it can also mean the opposite, like sort of a winding up into a container. There's some ambivalence there.
Yeah. And you know, I was having an experience a couple weeks ago where multiple projects I was working on suddenly had unraveling
Yes.
at the same time. And it was a very strange experience. And I was like, okay, what am I meant to do? Should I just let everything drop, right? And move on?
Mhm.
And then in the course of their unraveling, they were transforming into something else.
Yeah.
Um, so I thought, oh my goodness, this is like a live metaphor of like what Calleia's poem is about right here. In the process of something falling apart, something else comes in to fill it up. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
I love
simultaneously.
that idea of transformation because I feel like that's the only time that we get to experience transformation is when things do unwind a bit. Like, um,
Mhm.
and then there's it doesn't always happen, but then yeah, there's the opportunity for something
Yeah.
new to become. That's
And
great.
do you find that, you know, with teaching, I often find like the hardest thing, the hardest obstacle standing in the way of a student is oftentimes that they don't want to unravel because
Hmm.
they carry the things from their past into the present and they're not willing to unravel. And therefore, the transformation part is kind of kept at arm's length.
Yeah,
Then our
yeah,
job in teaching as educators is how do we like loosen the grip.
absolutely. Yeah, and teaching movement, that's all about how do you breathe, which makes room, I think, for something new.
To right, to make space internally.
I think in talking about desires, they often feel both unraveled and raveled at the same time. Like desires are kind of unwieldy. They're not something that like exists in a really controlled box. Um, but they are substantive, and so I think that they do have like kind of an entity that emerges and comes together. For a poem that has to do a bit with desire, ravel feels like the right word that carries that complexity. But
We as human beings are definitely contradictions. Uh,
we are. We're contradictions. We're paradoxes. Yeah, walking around.
Come and meet Calleja in person with me on February 25th, 2024 at Klavierhaus.
Yes. Come hear music and poetry.